Dragon Maid Season 2 continues to be a perfect example of how to take an already seemingly perfect season, that of Season 1 of Dragon Maid, and refine it, improve it, add some new bells and whistles, like in the case of Ilulu, and say, wow, this is even better than what came before. And if they can continue to keep the momentum going, I could easily see myself saying the exact same thing for Season 3. Whether it's in this episode, Ilulu getting a part-time job to then flustering every high school boy out in existence, I mean, anyone put in this man's shoes would be feeling the exact same way. You're, going through your changes, you're in the middle of high school trying to find yourself, and then in comes who you thought was going to be some dumbass or someone trying to manipulate grandma. You're ready to throw some fists, and instead you end up landing in her chest and she just calls you a pervert very softly. Or even giving Elma, a character who had this pretty cute quirk towards food. She loves food, she's infatuated by food, and then you give an actual reason and backstory as to why that happened while fleshing out the relationship between Tohru and Elma, making us say, wow, not only are you taking quirks that were good as a standalone experience, but you're giving even more reason for why they're like that. I think as funny as it is to already have like a pretty in-world reason for why Ilulu's character design is the way that she is. I mean, she struggled to even make hands, she finally has mastered that anyway. But the fact that she has these enormous breasts, right? She has a problem condensing herself due to her insane power. But in this episode, she tells a kid, and I firmly believe what she said, that they're actually flame sacks, and that's where she stores her fire. I just love the idea that something like Dragon Maid can use fan service in such a way that it gives in-world reasons for the absurdity while still being able to market it for a very specific purpose, and that is to sell that merchandise, and sell that merchandise they will do. This episode was once again divided into two very specific plot lines, both of which were incredibly good, but I have to say, Ilulu might have stole the show once again for me. I mean, a character who never really got to have the childhood she wants now is getting a second chance at that by being under Kobayashi's care, but like Tohru and the others, they all need to have some form of job, and unlike Kana, she can't just go to like an elementary school without being seen as a little weird. Actually, at first I thought maybe she'd be like a daycare tutor or something like that, maybe a support worker for kids, but the idea of her ending up going to a candy store and getting the job there is probably the perfect fit for her. Someone who enjoys playing and enjoys being a kid. So what would be a great job? Well, something that allows her to bring smiles to children's faces, and that is basically selling them candy. And I love the idea of this grandson here. I think his name was Take or something like that. I love him because he's literally ready to throw some hands. He's thinking grandma hired some dude. I mean, look at the size of the uniform I'm giving. Most likely manipulating poor old grandma, gonna rob her of her money blind. And then in comes big busty goddess to him, and he's like, oh shit. Well, no, I'm still going to be careful, I'm still going to do my thing, but she is so nonchalant by almost stripping in front of him, the delayed responses from her to then just the kind of emotional building towards the end, where he teaches her how to spin the top and things like that. I love how you can take a character like Ilulu, who, I mean, before the season started up, the internet was the internet. Oh my god, Dragon Maid is so bad, look at this character design coming in, screw Dragon Maid, cancel KyoAni, bunch of bullshit no one actually cared about, but it is the internet. And they took a character who I had my original assumption of her was, she's probably going to be a pretty big fan service magnet, and she probably would have either a very cute or feisty attitude. Turned out, all of that was true. The thing that I never saw coming was how deep her actual character would be. And a character who was introduced just moments ago for the second season has already surpassed so many for me as not only being, I think, a better and more well-written character, but someone who I'm dying to see more of. They didn't need to introduce any more characters. I mean, just take a look at the Elma backstory with Tohru. That further fleshes out an already established character. They could have continued to do that while introduce new mechanics, new plot points, and that would have made Season 2 good enough to be warranted for an anime series. But by introducing a character like Ilulu, someone who's vastly different, I mean, that's something this anime's done a great job at. Every character, whether it's dragon or human, has a vastly different personality, and actually feels like a person rather than just, oh, here's a copy and paste of all these tropes we've seen before. And it's fantastic to see how far she's come and how far she's probably going to go by the time Season 2 wraps up. And if they do make a season 3, which I hope they do, which I definitely see the potential, and sometimes even if a manga has a ton of material to adapt, it doesn't mean we should adapt it. A lot of times it is just kind of dragged on for the point of making more volumes, because once you have an established name, it's a lot easier to print those manga volumes than if you do a new series and things like that. But a show like this, definitely you feel like could easily succeed with a season 3, maybe even a season 4. And should they add more characters in, either in this season or next season, you feel like even though the cast is large, there's still room for it. I mean, I never really thought we'd get a flashback to an Egyptian-like setting with Elma and Tohru, but here we are, and actually see Tohru in such a different way. Because we knew Tohru was different before meeting Kobayashi, but to hear her voice actress just go in and deliver that very cold and almost dagger-like performance, it was pretty impressive and kind of sad too. But I mean, I love to see the building of Elma and her's relationship because they're both two very different dragons from two very different dragon walks of life. That's the entire reason that conversation could happen at the beginning. But to see her and just like the growing of the love for food and how she tagged along, I think the scene by the campfire was probably my favorite point in their backstory because she falls asleep, you know, it's a classic scene, she's flustered trying to push her away, but eventually gives in because honestly it's cute and they've at that point becomes a form of friends or at least companionships at that point in time. I think it's after the credits or the very end of the episodes, somewhere in that nature. I love the idea that Elma's saying, like, you know, her quest to find food, she also wants to share with her as well. And even though things definitely didn't always go according to plan, I mean, they went in dragon forms and they fought for their lives. It kind of feels like the type of friendship that every century or two, they might try to kill one another and actually try to kill one another, not just them going fiery in the market. But at the end of the day, they definitely feel like they are friends and just they're polar opposites, but sometimes that polar opposite can make for a pretty good companionship. Maybe not romantically, because, you know, they always say opposites attract, but really, you want to be similar to your partner. A few differences here and there aren't going to be that big of a wedge issue going forward, but you can't really see a character like Elma and Tohru being, like, romantically involved. But friendship's a bit different. Being polar opposites can work as you don't have to spend every single second with them, right? So it's nice to have some more connection and development towards them as someone like Kobayashi continues to be that mother figure bringing them back in and smacking some sense into her foolish children. I especially love that moment, even though it was so brief. You gotta love Connor, right? I mean, she continues to fluster the hell out of her friend by saying, oh, we're matching and look at this, and she just goes like a red cherry tomato. It's amazing. It's just, they have so many characters to work with, and whether it's the new character Ilulu just stealing the show for me, or fleshing out someone like Elma, already a fan favorite, this season of Dragon Maid I think is already better than season 1, and that might be premature for some people. Some people say, no, we've already had a full season. It's hard to compare. But I mean, comparing the first 5 episodes or so of this to season 1, I actually think they improved. Not only on a production level, I think they kept that classic KyoAni charm while improving and using their new talents and things like that, but also the story structure. It just feels so much more tightly written. Now that we have an established cast of characters, it's a lot easier to introduce a character like Ilulu without having to redo and repurpose everything. We can just have the already established dragons force her into that human lifestyle. It's no longer just Kobayashi trying to tiptoe around the inevitable. Now we have characters like Tohru who can do exactly that. The show is absolutely fantastic and is always one of my more anticipated shows of the week, and I'm so excited to see where they're going to take it, what characters are going to get their chance to shine. So cross my fingers for more Fafnir content, but this shit's amazing and I'm so excited for more. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below, leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.